My name is Walter. I'm 78 years old, and I'm sitting in the kitchen where I've sat every morning for 41 years. And I think it's time I said this out loud, even if it's just to this room, even if no one ever hears it. There were flowers on my porch in the spring of 1979. I want to start there, because that's where I keep starting, no matter how many times I try to begin somewhere else. They were white, small ones, the kind that come in a plain glass jar, not a vase, not wrapped in anything fancy, no card, no name. Just sitting there on the top step when I came home from the mill, still smelling like machine oil, still tired in that particular way a man gets tired when he's 31 and thinks he has all the time in the world. I remember standing over them for a long while. My wife, Dorothy, God rest her, she came out and stood beside me, and neither of us said much. She asked who they might be from. I said I didn't know, and that was true. I really didn't know. I want to tell you I forgot about them. That would be the easier story. But I didn't forget. I just decided not to ask. There's a difference between not knowing something and choosing not to find out, and I didn't understand that difference back then. I understand it now. Now it's about the only thing I understand clearly. I was a quiet man. Still am, I suppose, though there's less reason to be quiet these days, less people around to be quiet in front of. Back then, quiet felt like strength. It felt like the way a man was supposed to carry himself. My father was quiet, his father before him. We didn't ask questions that might lead somewhere uncomfortable. We let things sit. We let things pass. So I let the flowers sit. I watered them for a week, out of some instinct I couldn't name, and then they wilted, and I threw them out with the coffee grounds, and I never spoke of them again. Not to Dorothy, not to anyone, but I thought about them. God, how I thought about them. There was a woman named Alice who worked the front counter at the hardware store 2 blocks from our house. I'd see her most Saturdays when I went in for nails or a length of pipe or whatever small thing gave me a reason to walk down there. We talked sometimes. Nothing improper, nothing I could point to and call a mistake. Just talk. About the weather, about her sister's garden, about nothing at all, really. But I looked forward to those Saturdays in a way I didn't examine too closely. A few weeks before the flowers appeared, Alice had mentioned, almost in passing, that she loved white flowers, that they reminded her of a garden her mother kept before she passed. I never asked her if she'd left them. I never asked anyone. I let the question live in the back of my house the way you let a draft live in a room you don't use much, something you just get used to walking around. Dorothy and I raised 3 children in that house. We had a good life. I want to say that clearly, because I don't want this to sound like a complaint about my marriage, because it wasn't. Dorothy was a fine woman. She deserved a husband who wasn't carrying around a jar of white flowers in his mind for 40 years. But I was. I saw Alice one more time, years later, at a funeral, of all places. Someone from the old street had passed, and half the neighborhood turned out. She was older by then. We both were. Her hair gray, mine mostly gone. We stood near the coffee table in that awkward way people do after a service, holding little paper cups, not sure what to do with our hands. I almost asked her. I had the words right there, sitting on my tongue like a stone. I didn't ask. I asked about her sister instead, about the garden. Small talk, the same small talk we'd had 30 years before, except now we were 2 old people standing in a stranger's living room, instead of 2 young people standing at a hardware counter, and the years between those 2 moments had closed up like a wound that never got looked at, just left to heal wrong. She died 4 years ago. I read about it in the paper. A small notice, nothing more. Survived by a sister, 2 nieces, no mention of a husband. I sat with that notice in my hands for a long time. I think about why I never asked. I've had plenty of years to think about it, more than most men get, and I still don't have a clean answer. Part of it was fear, I think. Not fear of what she'd say if the answer was yes. fear of what it would mean about the life I'd already chosen. If she had left those flowers, then something had been true that I'd spent my whole life pretending wasn't. And if she hadn't, then I'd have opened a door for nothing, embarrassed us both, disturbed something that maybe didn't need disturbing. Either way felt like a risk I didn't know how to carry. So I carried the not knowing instead. Turns out that was heavier than either answer would have been. I just didn't find that out until it was too late to trade it in. Dorothy passed 6 years ago. Heart, mostly worn out from just living, the doctor said, like that was supposed to be some comfort. In her last year, when she was too tired most days to do much but sit by the window, she asked me once, out of nowhere, who I thought had left those flowers all those years back. I hadn't realized she'd remembered them at all. I certainly never thought she'd carried the question the way I had. I told her I didn't know, which was, by then, still technically true, though it had stopped feeling honest a long time before that. She looked at me for a moment, the way she used to look at me when we were young, and she could see straight through whatever I was trying to keep folded up inside myself. She didn't press it. She just nodded, like she'd confirmed something she already suspected, and turned back to the window. I've wondered since if she knew more than she ever said, if maybe she'd always known and had simply decided, the way I had, that some doors are easier left shut. Maybe that's a thing that runs in families, or maybe it's just a thing that runs in people like us, people who mistake silence for peace. I don't get many visitors now. My son calls on Sundays. My daughter sends photographs of her grandchildren, which I keep in a drawer I mean to look through more often than I do. The house is quiet in a way it never used to be, and in that quiet, the old questions have a way of getting louder, not softer, the way I always assumed they would with enough time. I still have the glass jar. I don't know why I kept it. It sits on a shelf in the pantry, empty, a little cloudy now, and some mornings I catch myself looking at it while the coffee's brewing, like it might finally tell me something after all these years of saying nothing. It never does. I suppose I always knew it wouldn't. Jars don't talk. Only people do, and only if they're willing. I'm not writing this because I think it will change anything. Alice is gone. Dorothy is gone. The hardware store closed sometime in the 90s and became a dry cleaner, then a parking lot. There's no door left to open. Not really. I understand that. I think I'm only saying it now because I'm 78, and I've noticed lately that the things I don't say seem to take up more room in me than the things I do, and I'm tired of making space for them. I don't know what I wanted to happen, telling you this. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just wanted it to exist somewhere outside my own head for once, after 40-some years of it living only in there. If you're still listening, I suppose I'd just ask you to sit with it a moment, the way I never let myself sit with the actual question, back when it still mattered whether I asked it or not. I think I'll leave it there for tonight.